Hi guys, let's see about saliva and its role in prosthodontics. Here are the contents. What is saliva? Followed by sources and classification of salivary glands. Then composition, function and characteristics of saliva. Followed by xerostomia, its etiology, clinical features and treatment. And lastly, role of saliva in prosthodontics. What is saliva? The watery, slightly alkaline fluid secreted into the mouth by salivary glands and mucous membrane that lines the mouth. Or, it has been described as a complex secretion of the salivary glands which constantly bathes the teeth and the oral mucosa. Or, it is an extracellular fluid produced and secreted by salivary glands in the mouth. Next, the sources of saliva, that is salivary glands, they are classified under three systems. First, it is based on size and location, which comprises of major salivary gland and minor salivary glands. Major salivary glands, we all are familiar about parotid, submandibular and sublingual gland, whereas minor salivary glands, we have labial and buccal glands, palatine glands, glossopalatine glands, anterior lingual, posterior lingual glands and glands of von Ebner. Whereas on the basis of histochemical nature and secretion, we have mucous glands, serous glands and mixed glands. In mucous glands, we have labial and buccal glands, glossopalatine glands, palatine glands and anterior lingual glands. In serous glands, we have parotid and von Ebner's, whereas in mixed, we have serous predominant submandibular gland and mucous predominant sublingual gland. Next, on the basis of duct system, we have simple salivary gland and compound salivary gland. In simple salivary gland, we have all minor salivary glands, whereas in compound salivary glands, we have all major salivary glands. Next, we move on to the composition of saliva. So, saliva mainly constitutes 99% of water and 1% of solute. In solutes, we have organic molecules and inorganic molecules. In inorganic molecules, usually electrolytes are present, which have been listed in the slide, whereas in organic we have large organic molecules and small organic molecules, which have been listed accordingly. Functions of saliva. So basically there are two types of functions. First is protective functions and second is food and speech related functions. Among protective functions we have lubrication, antimicrobial, mucosal integrity, buffer, lavage, tooth integrity and pellicle formation. Whereas in food and speech related functions we have food preparation, digestion, taste and speech. So protective functions in short can be remembered as lamb lip with the help of this mnemonic. So next, this is the tabulated form of the functions of saliva. So first there is a function which is listed in bracket. There are components of the saliva which provides this type of function, and next is the mode of action. So first function we have lubrication, which is usually because of mucins present in the saliva, and it helps by forming high viscous solution which creates a non-frictional lubricant film and which contributes to the formation of pellicle. Second is antimicrobial, which is usually because of lysozyme and lactoferrins present in saliva. It hydrolyzes the bacterial cell wall and directed at specific bacterial molecules or enzymes, preventing adhesion and colonization of bacteria in the oral cavity. Third is maintenance of the mucosal integrity because of mucins and salivary peroxidases in saliva. They bind water, maintain oral tissue in a hydrated state and prevents desiccation. Fourth is lavage with the help of water by hydrokinetic flushing action. Fifth is buffer with the help of bicarbonate ions and phosphate ions by consuming H plus ions and preventing acidity of the saliva. Next is maintenance of tooth integrity with the help of calcium and phosphate ions. Further, we have formation of pellicle by forming a protective barrier and lubricating film which prevents the excessive wear of the oral tissues. Next, food and speech related functions. First, we have food preparation, which constitutes chewing and swallowing because of water and mucins. Next, we have digestion with the help of amylase and lipase, which split starch and triglycerides respectively. Third, we have taste because of gustin and hypotonicity of saliva, which enhances the tasting capacity. Fourth, we have speech because of water and mucins with the help of lubrication. Next, we move on to characteristics of saliva. As we all know that saliva is a clear, slightly acidic mucoserous exocrine secretion. It is a very dilute fluid composed of more than 99% water, as we have seen earlier. Its specific gravity is 1.002 to 1.008. pH is on an average 6.7 and ranges from 6.2 to 7.6. On an average, daily flow of saliva is 1 to 1.5 liters. Under this flow category, we have unstimulated salivary flow and stimulated salivary flow. Ranges have been given in the table below. Next, we move on to xerostomia. So basically, xerostomia is more commonly called as dry mouth, and it is the common complaint of many of the patient, but it is not necessary that it is always associated with the salivary gland hypofunction. So basically, xerostomia has wide range of etiologies, which are basically categorized into two factors: local factors and systemic factors. So first of all, local factors, we have bacterial or viral infections, sialolates, decreased masticatory activity. Next, we have pharmacological factors. As we all know that xerostomia is caused due to various types of medications such as analgesics, antihistamines, antihypertensives, antidepressants, cytotoxics, sedatives, etc. Next, we have pharmacotherapy like radiotherapy and chemotherapy. Next, in systemic factors, we have systemic disorders like autoimmune diseases, cardiovascular diseases, immunological diseases, endocrine disorders, neurologic disorders, and metabolic disorders, which may lead to xerostomia. Next, we move on to the clinical features of xerostomia. So first and foremost feature is dry mouth. Then next is patient often feels thirsty. Next is dysphagia. Then dysphonia. Then difficulty with eating dry foods. Then patient need to sip water while eating. Then difficult with the wearing of the dentures. Frequent use of means to keep the mouth moist like chewing gum and consumption of sour candies. Now investigations for these xerostomiacs. Firstly, we have salivary function tests, then salivary screening tests, then special test in case of any salivary gland disorders. We need to go for this special test like sialochemistry or imaging techniques like sialography, then labial or palatal biopsy, then immunotesting of the whole saliva and blood tests. Next, we move on to the treatment. Among treatment, we have three headings like identification and elimination of the cause. This is the first and foremost step for any of the treatment. Like we need to eliminate the underlying cause of the disease, followed by which we have palliative or symptomatic treatment, and followed by which we have treatment of xerostomia related oral complications. So palliative or symptomatic treatment, we have two categories like treatment of responders and treatment of non-responders. So first we will be discussing about treatment of responders, among which we have local stimulation and systemic stimulation. So among local stimulus, we have masticatory stimuli, chemical stimuli, and electronic stimuli. So masticatory stimuli, we usually ask patient to take high fiber foods, then salivary stimulants such as chewing gums, sugarless candies, paraffin wax, and in chemical stimuli we have citric acid containing fruits, lozenges and rinses, and flavoring agents such as mint. And electronic stimuli, there's an example of Salitron, which is a battery operated electronic device. It helps in the secretion of the saliva of the salivary from the salivary glands with the help of the electronic current. Next, we have systemic stimulation like drugs such as anethol triathion and cholinergic drugs such as pilocarpine and cevimeline. So after treatment of responders, there may be some patients who may respond to the treatment, but there are also such cases who do not respond to any of the things like local or systemic stimulation. So for them we have treatment of non-responders groups, which is in the gray thing. Then treatment of non-responders, we have frequent intake of water, then avoid alcoholic or caffeinated beverages because they lead to dry mouth very commonly. Then use of room humidifiers, and then artificial saliva or saliva substitutes. Getting in detail about the artificial saliva, here are the names: aqueous ion solutions, carboxymethyl hydroxymethyl cellulose preparations, mucin containing solution, glycoprotein containing agents, and an enzyme containing gels. And thirdly, treatment of xerostomia related complications, as because of dry mouth patient gets more prone to dental caries and other fungal infections into the oral cavity, so we need to treat them also. So dental caries, we need to ask patient to reduce the sugar intake and all the things which we usually do to prevent the dental caries. Whereas in candidiasis, we diagnose it first and then we treat it with the antifungal agents. And then recent treatments, there are gene transfer technology and bioengineering of artificial salivary gland, which are under study still. Next is role of saliva in prosthodontics. So as we all know, first and foremost role of saliva in prosthodontics is with respect to denture retention, which is very very important, followed by impression making, and thirdly isolation of the prepared tooth before cementation. So how saliva plays an important role in physical factors such as adhesion, cohesion, interfacial surface tension and capillarity action. Let's see. So denture relating to physical factors, firstly is adhesion. So adhesion acts when saliva it contacts denture as well as soft tissue at the same time with the help of the spin-Barrett phenomena. Spin-Barrett phenomena is the specific property of saliva to form strings. So because of this property, saliva has acquired the property of the uniformity over the surface. So this helps in the proper adhesion of the denture to the mucous membrane. Secondly, cohesion is something which is within the molecule. So cohesion occurs within the layer of saliva between the denture base and the mucous membrane, whereas adhesion is between two different subjects. Third is interfacial surface tension. It is found in the thin film of saliva between the denture base and the mucosa of basal seat. Fourth is capillary attraction. When the adaptation of denture base to mucosa on which it rests is sufficiently close, the narrow space which is present between the denture and the mucous membrane is acquired by the saliva with the phenomena of the capillary tube, and it helps to retain the denture. All this we have usually read at the time of our final year prosthodontics. So we all are familiar with this: adhesion, cohesion, interfacial surface tension and capillary attraction. Next, saliva in impression making. So many of the times excessive salivation may cause difficulty in impression making of the complete dentures. So in these cases, usually administration of drugs is done before making an impression if it is getting too much difficult to make an impression. And many of the times excessive secretion from the mucous glands in the palate region cause distortion of the impression material. So to counteract this problem, the palate needs to be massaged to encourage the glands to empty the mouth, and then it is irrigated with the astringent, and palate may be wiped with gauze. And thirdly, in case of cementation, we need to isolate the tooth before cementing any type of prosthesis into the oral cavity, because saliva usually leads to the dissolution of the cements, and this further leads to the micro leakage and secondary caries in the oral cavity. So thank you all.